there is a rule that every search and rescue volunteer in Appalachia learns during their first week, a rule that is never written in any manual, never filed in any report, never spoken. Above a whisper, if you hear someone calling your name from deeper in the forest, you do not answer. You do not follow the sound. You turn around and you move in the opposite direction as fast as you can. Tonight, I'm going to tell you why that rule exists and what happens to the people who break it. I was 26 years old when I joined the volunteer search and rescue team in McDowell County, West Virginia. If you've never been to McDowell County, it is one of the most isolated places in the eastern United States. The hollows run so deep that sunlight only reaches the valley floor for a few hours each day. Entire communities exist on dirt roads that don't appear on any GPS system. Cell service is a rumor. And the old-timers, the ones who've lived there their whole lives, they'll look you straight in the eyes and tell you that there are things in those woods that have been there longer than the trees themselves. I used to smile when they said that. I don't anymore. The call came in on a Tuesday evening in late October. A 7-year-old girl named Lily Marsh had wandered away from her grandmother's property near the Tug Fork tributary. The grandmother reported she'd been gone roughly 4 hours before anyone noticed. That's not unusual out there. Kids roam, they chase creek beds, they follow deer trails until they lose track of time. They come home muddy and grinning before dark. But dark had come, and Lily hadn't. We assembled at the trailhead by 8 p.m. 6 of us, 2 sheriff's deputies, 4 volunteers, me included. Standard grid search protocol, headlamps, whistles, radio checks every 15 minutes. The temperature had already dropped to about 38 degrees. But it was the fog that made everyone quiet. The wind stopped first, then the insects, then even the leaves seemed to forget how to move. The only sound left was my own breathing. It was wrong. It didn't roll in from the valley the way fog normally does in that region. It just appeared, as though someone had drawn a curtain across the tree line. Thick, wet, the kind of fog that swallows your headlamp beam about 6 feet in front of your face and turns the light into a dull, milky glow that illuminates absolutely nothing. Our team lead was a man named Harlan, 53 years old, 14 years on search and rescue, calm as stone. The kind of man who speaks slowly because he means every single word. But I noticed something in those first 20 minutes that I had never seen before. Harlan kept looking behind us, not checking our formation, not scanning the trail. He was looking behind us. The way you look behind you when you think, when you know that something is following. I didn't ask him about it. I wish I had. We pushed north along the ridgeline, calling Lily's name. Standard procedure. You call, you listen, you move. Call, listen, move. Your ears become the most important tool you have. You're listening for anything. A child's cry, a whimper, rustling through underbrush. Anything that tells you a 7-year-old girl is out here in the dark, afraid and cold. At approximately 9:15 p.m., we heard it. A child crying, faint, coming from the northeast, deeper into the hollow. The sound was perfect. A little girl sobbing, hitching breaths between the cries, the kind of sound that reaches into your chest and squeezes, because it is so clearly afraid. Everyone's head turned at the same time. We adjusted bearing immediately, moved faster. Harlan was on point. I was second in formation. The fog was so thick now that I could barely see his back 3 feet in front of me. The crying got louder, closer, and then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The pattern. The crying was repeating in an exact loop every 43 seconds. The same hitching breath, the same rising sob, the same duration, the same fading whimper, then silence, then the exact same sequence again. Identical, down to the millisecond, like someone had taken a recording of a child crying and was playing it on repeat, over and over and over. I realized I was gripping my flashlight so tightly, my knuckles hurt. I grabbed Harlan's shoulder. He stopped, held up a closed fist. The team froze. We stood there in total silence and listened to that sound cycle 4 consecutive times. Same cry, same breath, same duration, same fade. 43 seconds, reset. 43 seconds, reset. No child cries like that. No human being repeats a sound with that level of mechanical perfection. Not in fear, not in pain, not under any circumstance. Harlan turned to face me, and the look on his face. I will carry it with me for the rest of my life. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. It was recognition. Like he had heard this before. Like he knew exactly what was happening. Like he had been waiting for this moment since the second we stepped into the fog. He keyed his radio. His voice was steady, but the volume was wrong. Too quiet. As if he didn't want whatever was out there to hear him. All units. Full stop. Nobody moves toward that sound. That is not the girl. Confirmed receipt. One by one, the team confirmed. 4 quiet voices acknowledging an order that none of us fully understood. The crying continued. 43 seconds reset. 43 seconds reset. And then it changed. Help me. I'm cold. Please. The voice came from directly ahead of us, maybe 30 yards into the fog. And it was unmistakably a child's voice. The pitch was right, the words were right, but the emotion was absent. It was like listening to someone read a script they didn't understand. The syllables were technically correct. The cadence was close. But there was no breath behind it. No desperation, no shivering, no tears. It was a performance, and not a good one. Every word was perfect. Every pause was perfect. Everything, except the feeling behind it. And then the voice said something that made every hair on my body stand straight up. Marcus, I'm cold. Please help me. My name. My breathing became so loud, it felt like it belonged to someone standing beside me. I have never told a single person in McDowell County my first name. I signed up as M. Vance. My volunteer paperwork lists M. Vance. That is a deliberate choice I made because I am an intensely private person. That thing standing in the fog, in the dark, 30 yards from where I stood, knew my name. Harlan grabbed my wrist. Hard. Hard enough to leave bruises that were still visible 2 days later. He pulled me backward and leaned in close. So close, I could feel his breath against my ear. And whispered 4 words I will never forget. It learns from listening. And I understood. Immediately. Every radio check we'd made since entering the forest, every time we'd called out Lily's name, every time we'd used our own names, every time we'd spoken our coordinates, our bearing, our formation positions, something in that hollow had been absorbing all of it, cataloging it, storing it, breaking it down into component parts, and now it was using the pieces, assembling them, to construct something that sounded almost like a person asking for help. Almost, but not quite. We pulled back to the ridgeline. Nobody spoke. We didn't need to. Every face around me wore the exact same expression. The fog seemed to press in closer, thicker, as if it was aware that we were retreating. The temperature dropped another 5 degrees in a matter of minutes. My breath hung in the air like smoke and didn't dissipate. It just floated there, suspended. At approximately 10:40 p.m., Deputy Cortez, positioned on our southern flank, roughly 60 yards from the main group, radioed in. His voice was shaking. I have visual, repeat. I have visual on something at my 2 o'clock, approximately 40 meters, standing in the tree line. Harlan responded immediately. His voice was iron. Describe what you see. Do not approach. Do not move. A pause. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. It's tall, 8, maybe 9 feet. It's standing between two hemlock trees. I cannot see a face. The head is smooth, like wet clay. No eyes, no features, just smooth. There was nowhere for its eyes to be. Yet I knew it was looking directly at me. The skin is gray, pale gray, and it's not moving. It's just standing there like it's waiting. Another pause. Cortez's breathing was audible over the radio, fast, shallow, the sound of a man fighting every instinct in his body. Then his voice came through one final time, and it was barely a whisper. Oh, God. Its mouth is open, and Lily's voice is coming out of it. Cortez's radio went silent. We called him 11 times. No response, no static, no feedback, only silence. The kind of silence that sounds heavier than noise. We found his radio the next morning. It was sitting upright on a rock shelf, approximately 200 yards from his last known position. Upright, placed there, deliberately, carefully, like someone or something had set it there with intention. Deputy Cortez was found 3 days later by a separate team with tracking dogs. He was sitting upright against a white oak tree, 7 miles from the search area. His eyes were open. He was shivering, unresponsive, wrapped in a thermal emergency blanket, a thermal blanket that no one on our team carried. He never spoke about what happened during those missing hours, not to the sheriff, not to his wife, not to the crisis counselor the county brought in. He resigned from the department 2 weeks later. He moved to Florida. He changed his phone number. Lily Marsh was found the following morning by a completely separate search team. She was curled up inside a drainage culvert about a quarter mile from her grandmother's property. She was cold, dehydrated, disoriented, but physically, she was unharmed. When the paramedics checked her over, they found no injuries, no scratches from running through brush. She should have been suffering from the cold, but somehow, she wasn't. When her grandmother held her and asked where she'd been, what had happened, Lily said something that made the old woman call the pastor before she called the doctor. The tall man kept calling me with Mommy's voice, but I remembered what Grammy said. If it sounds like someone you love, but it doesn't feel right, you cover your ears and you pray. Lily's mother had passed away when Lily was 3 years old, whatever was in those woods that night. It sounded exactly like the voice Lily remembered, and it used it to try to call a 7-year-old girl deeper into the hollow. I still volunteer with search and rescue. 7 years later, I'm still out there, but I carry 2 things now that were not part of my original kit. A pair of noise-canceling earbuds, and a personal rule that I will never break. Not for any reason, not for any person, not under any circumstance. If I hear someone call my name In the woods after dark, I do not answer. I do not look toward the sound. I do not try to identify the voice, because whatever lives in those hollows, it doesn't just mimic voices. It collects them. It adds them to its library, files them away, stores them like tools in a drawer. And once it has yours, it never stops calling. Sometimes, I still wake up because I think I heard my name. If you made it this far, I need to ask you something. Lily survived because her grandmother taught her a rule about voices that sound familiar, but feel wrong. Here is my question for you. If you were alone in those woods, and you heard the voice of someone you loved, someone who was gone, calling your name from the darkness, could you resist following it? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story kept you awake, hit subscribe. Because next week, I'm taking you somewhere much worse, underground, where there is no fog to hide in, no trees to run between, just rock and darkness and something pale crawling toward you. I'll see you there.